HDK. It's a road car based on a race car. A very special race car. This race car. This is the 722 GT prototype, the last car designed while Gordon Murray was at McLaren. Developed in secret, it is a fascinating hodgepodge of parts. Things like the pedals, seat, wheels, rear wing, uprights, hub nuts, all of them came from the McLaren F1 GTR parts bin. It never actually competed because its sole purpose was to look gorgeous and convince the top brass at Mercedes that they should take the SLR racing one day. And it did its job, because there was eventually a short-lived one-make race series. But the 12 cars built for that were produced by RML and were actually quite different to this mad, beautiful prototype. This is special. And that's why almost 20 years later it has inspired McLaren Special Operations, together with a small group of passionate owners, to produce a road-going version. An SLR that looks and feels like it's taken a wrong turn out of a pit lane and ended up on the public highway. But, like the weather in this film, the SLR in general, and this high downforce kit version in particular, has got two sides to it: the sunshine and the snow, the mad 200-mile-an-hour supercar and the easygoing GT. I love the fact that this somehow makes bonkers seem so accessible. It's like, a house-trained Tyrannosaurus Rex. Because on the one hand, you've got this extraordinary 5.4 litre supercharged V8 with all of its blood and thunder soundtrack and the performance to back it up. I mean, make no mistake of that. But then it's actually quite easy to drive after a while. With this automatic gearbox in here, it means you just concentrate on the two pedals. That's it. There is no point touching the paddles in this, which seems weird. You think, I really should do, but just don't bother. I mean, we'll put it into manual and up to sport like that. Use the paddles. And something happens eventually. We've got some shift lights as well in this. But after a while you realise, I mean, the delay in changes is extraordinary. It's even worse on downshifts. I mean, if a modern PDK is like a samurai sword slicing through the changes, this is it's like using a tenderizing mallet to do the same job. So you just leave it in comfort. It's what it wants. The gearbox you realise it doesn't actually matter after a while, because it's an engine that you drive on that huge swell of growling, snarling torque. The brakes, well, they appear to have no progression at all. It's really very disconcerting the first time you use them. But then, like so much of this car, you learn to work with them. You learn their foibles. And then it's a car that, well, you just kind of can't help but enjoy. It just puts a smile on your face. It is a ridiculous car. I have to take my road tester's head off, or at least get past all that, because there is plenty wrong with this, really. A lot of the criticisms that were levelled at it when it was launched still exist. Yes, MSO has improved it, and they would never say that they have made it in any way perfect. But actually now, after all these years, it's a car that you can see why people love it, why after a while they just think it's such a lovable thing. It's a car that is really easy to dismiss for what it isn't. But actually, once you accept what it is, it's a car that's really easy to love. I really like the fact that people care enough about the SLR to do something like this with it. And in a flurry of TLAs, what has MSO done with the SLR to turn it into this HDK? Well, they've done a lot. Pretty much all the bodywork is altered, from the nose over the arches, down the amazing sculptural sides with the chunky sills, to the fresh rear bumper and enormous new diffuser. All of it in carbon fibre. There are large louvers and more gaping grilles. The whole thing sits 20mm lower and 60mm wider, with bespoke OZ Super Turismo wheels completing the race car vibe. Open the boot, and the wing isn't just for show either. MSO isn't making any monstrous downforce claims, but the fact the struts have been cleverly braced and bonded into the chassis on 3 points per side shows it means business. The overall look is wild, but also rather svelte, and it has the polish and precision execution of a factory car. Obviously, it's expensive. Each one will cost just north of £250,000 to convert, but before you rush to check your bank balance, I'm afraid they're all spoken for. And then there is the paint job for this car. Part NASCAR, part cartoon character, part pure work of art. Yes, that is hand-turned gold leaf. You're either going to love it or hate it. You're either going to see the fun in it, the Dynaco blue, or not get it at all. The owners have decided to go to town on their paint jobs as well, one having his painted to look like a World War II P-51 Mustang, complete with toothy grin and fake rivets. You can see why. It's a soundtrack really befitting of a P-51 Mustang. Ditching the original silencers saved a whopping 30 kilos, and the new exhaust with its slashed single exit is even switchable between loud and full Spinal Tap. It's a sound that you can really feel with those side exit exhausts. Those equivalents of an open fire just down by your feet. And you can feel it through the soles of your feet. You feel it when you start up with this amazing flip top on the gear selector down here. It just emanates through the car. In case you're wondering about the trousers that go with the mouth, they're pretty standard, with torque remaining at 575 pounds-foot and just a mild uplift in power to 626 bhp, thanks to better breathing. I'd say that was ample though. The interior came in for quite a bit of flack when this was launched 20 years ago as well, because at the time it was very much, well, like any other Mercedes really, but with the benefit of time, obviously this is, I think, aged pretty well. It's obviously not like any current Mercedes really, so it has, well, a little more an air of the exotic about it, plus all the things that MSO has done. So we've got that rear carbon deck there, which looks like it should always have been there, to be honest. And then we've got these lovely seats, these carbon buckets, which actually adjust kind of almost a bit like the new McLaren Artura because of the sort of the way they rock back and forth, and you can get a really nice driving position. Plus I love the fact these ones are trimmed in corduroy. I really should have worn some corduroy trousers to go with it, and then you could have sort of locked them in for that bit of added security. Oh, corduroy, the technical fabric. It is a really intimidating car to get into to start with, this, because it's so huge. And I mean, this is 60mm wider than a standard SLR, which is not a narrow car. So on a road like this, you do occasionally kind of feel yourself straying over the cat's eyes and hearing up da-dunk, 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 da-dunk. They added a bigger power steering pump into this, which I was worried might have sort of made it feel all too light at the front end, but obviously we've got the wider tracks and not a bit of it. It's of course hydraulically assisted power steering, so compared to modern cars really there is an awful lot of feel still, all that feedback, all that detail. The engineers actually added in an extra UJ as well, just to smooth out the steering a little more. However, the nose still feels a long way ahead of you, and it's a car that you need to pay attention to. This is a car that you really have to drive positively. The brakes, the steering, they need to be driven with a certain amount of purpose, certainly if you're going to drive it quickly on a road like this. I think it sums up an awful lot about this car, that they could have made it quicker round a track. So this is just over 3 seconds quicker than a standard SLR round MSO's test track, but they could have made it 4 seconds quicker. However, then they would have lost some of the feel that they wanted in this car, some of that race car for the road feel. No, it doesn't make it the most comfortable car on long journeys, but that's not what this is about. And it does still have some of the Super GT to it. The really sophisticated KW dampers do still just take the edge off, so although it bobbles around and hunts over cambers, it still has some of that usable nature to it, I think. And this particular car, with over 90,000 miles on the clock, has certainly done some long journeys, because it has to be one of the most storied and special SLRs in existence. This is PP14, or pre-production 14. It started off as the car that was sent to the Shaker rig. That destroys most cars, but because the SLR is built like, well, a bit of a tank, it didn't destroy this, so they rebuilt it and it went testing. It had a massive shunt at Nardo going backwards into a barrier, but still it survived. They rebuilt it again. PP14 went back into testing for the SLR before being handed over to the team that would become MSO. Dampers, exhausts, bodywork, you name it, it's developed it in the last 20 years, and in the process it's been repainted over and over again, throwing on costumes like a one-man play, until it went back to square one for this. They took 14 layers of paint off this car, and then they had to alter the bodywork as well, back to standard. And now, after all that, it's fitting that PP14 is having perhaps its final lease of life, like this. The mad, joyful, quirky and exuberant SLR HDK.